Hi friends, it's Sarah from rufflesandrainboots.com, and today I'm sharing a compilation of 4th of July patriotic gnomes that you can make with a hot glue gun or a sewing machine. These include patterns, these include freebies, these include some Dollar Tree crafts, and even some scrap crafts. These are all videos previously published, so stick around for the fun.
Hi friends, it's Sarah from Ruffles and Rain Boots, and today we're making a Dollar Tree 4th of July gnome. Go to your Dollar Tree, get all this stuff on sale, and if you'd like to make them with me, whoop, stick around. As always, please give that video a like so I know you're here crafting with me. Speaking of crafting, we're going to make this guy 8 inches tall, no pattern needed, everything from the Dollar Tree except for the nose and the little hands. So I'm going to use a scarf, a woman's sock, my clay nose and hands, and just this is a pillow, and this, the star of the show, is a balloon weight. So I'm going to use almost every single piece of this balloon weight. I'm going to cut off the bottom portion that was stuck into this puck. I don't know what this is, pressboard, broken pieces of pressboard. I don't know, but it's just a big heavy weight, and I'm going to use that for the weight in my sock gnome. Easy peasy, right? Once we get that tucked in, it kind of does stick, so just pull it all the way down and sort of flatten out the seam of the toe. And then these pillows are great if you can find them at your Dollar Tree. If you can't, Dollar General, sometimes like a Big Lots, sometimes Ross or whatever, but they have stuffing in them and they're ridiculously shaggy and fun. My daughter just absolutely loves them. So what I did is, I'm gonna speed this part up. I just stuffed it as far as I could stuff it, making sure that when I squeezed it, it bounced back to its original position. Now, I know you can see through the sock, but we're going to cover up the entire sock, so it doesn't matter. All right, so I'm just going to use the twisty tie that was on the balloon weight, and yeah, because it was right there and I didn't have to go and get anything else. This whole thing will only take you 10, maybe 15 minutes to do. Most of what I'm showing you here is actual, this is the speed, like I didn't speed up anything except for the redundant stuff. All right, so I'm just going to always secure a little bit of glue right there, so in case that tie comes undone, we can make sure fluff doesn't go everywhere. For the hat, I am using this. It's actually pretty. It's a Dollar Tree scarf, but it's super thin. And so I'm cutting it almost 11 inches by the entire width of the scarf. And that way I'm going to be able to double it over and still have leftover for a hat, or I'm sorry, for the arms. So measure twice, cut once. So you can see here, just making sure that we do have a seam allowance, because we're going to be able to, here we go again, measure again. We want to make sure we can be able to double this over and turn it outside right. So here I'm going to create about a 4.5 to 5 inch base, and that's going to help us because we're going to tuck it down over the top of the gnome. If you're using a sock gnome, this helps to give your hat a little bit of structure as well. All right, so again, I just have right sides together here, and I'm just going to glue this edge. So just FYI, if you have a Silpat mat, put it down, because this is so thin, the hot glue can kind of go right through it if you press it. So I'm just not pressing really hard. I'm just barely touching it to the scarf. You see my awesome cutting job right there. Woo! All right, now that we have that, I'm going to squish that together because it came apart. Okay, so now that we have that, we're just going to fold it over. Now you can see me, I do this on some of my videos and I get asked a lot about it, but I just offset this. It's nothing new. It's the same as if you were to put just right side to right side and then edge glued. This is just me flipping it over because remember I had glued those two pieces together. So I just want to make sure I get all of the pieces so my hat doesn't come undone. That's all I'm doing here. I'm going to do the last little bit here at the bottom. All right, so we're going to set that aside for a second, and then we're going to get the star of the show, which is this fuzzy, ridiculously fuzzy, and completely shedding pillow. And I'm going to show you, it's insane. But I've made other gnomes with these pillows before from the Dollar Tree, and this is just the way they are. Not really going to do much about it. So go get your lint roller. After you pull and pull and pull all of the cut edges, just do yourself a favor and go get your lint roller. Not only will you be able to clean up your space, but you'll also be able to get those things that you can't pull out. That lint roller will get them. But this stuff does go everywhere. But the good news is that once it's on, it doesn't shed just randomly. All right, so as you can see, I cut for the entire gnome, and I'm just lining up the bottom so it kind of splays out a little bit. But I will say that this stuff is so much fun. You have to jiggle it, because look at it. Look at it. Isn't that fun? I'm just a kid. I get to play all day. Okay, so I'm putting a whole lot of hot glue. I mean, I don't really know of another way to do this. And we're just going to do that on the other side as well. Now, the top, you don't have to like press in and be secure. It's going to act as some fluffing, but the bottom, do go ahead and secure these pieces, because you will be able to yank out all these fibers unless you have them secured here. Like I said, the top is going to be covered, so we don't have to worry about it. And you can see the top is what's shedding there, right? All right, so now that our hat has dried, we're just going to flip it out right sides out. And I'm using a little bamboo skewer to press the tip out and then just slip it on. And this is going to give us a great idea of where to place our nose and our arms. All right, so for a nose, I'm just using a clay round that I had made from polymer clay. You can use a pom-pom, you can use anything you can find, a bead, a wood round, a wood half round, whatever you'd like. Split the beard to the fabric backing and glue it then. I just scrunched down the hat and added a little bit of glue right on the nose before I tipped the hat over, and I secured it with glue. Wanted it to stay. Now this thing, I wanted to like have the little Gnome holding it, but it wasn't going in, so I'm just cutting a teeny tiny little bit of the fabric backing and then shoving it in there, because it goes straight through the sock. So for the arms, I am going to just roll up this fabric. If you have the Dollar Tree foam hair rollers or curlers, I'm not really sure what they're officially called. I have some, but I didn't even think to get them out for this. But this, like I said, is super easy. All I'm doing is attaching, again, a double layer for this arm, and I'm going to double hem that open edge. And then that's going to act as my finished fancy seam. And so on the other side, I'm just going to roll it in on itself and then glue that down on that long edge. It's easy peasy, right? For the very end, I am going to tuck up the fabric before I put on the hands. I'm just cutting this because I made it quite long. So here I am just pushing in the fabric, and then I couldn't find 2 clay beads that were the same size, so I cut a clay bead. Yes, you can do it. No, I don't recommend it, but it fits perfectly, so I'm just saying. This is a Dollar Tree craft, right? We got to find and use what we've got. But Dollar Tree does sell pom-poms. They also sell like farmhousey stuff with those wood beads on it. Great to take apart. Okay, so I'm just making the second one as well. And if you also want, if you don't use your curlers, you can put a little tiny piece of 16, maybe 18 gauge wire in here, and you can have posable arms. Mine, however, are going to be glued down. So I'm doing it the exact same way, putting 2 layers together, securing one end, rolling up the other one, securing that down. And I had to get my skewer out to press in this end for his little hand. Attach that hand, and then just cut it to be the same size. And now I'm just going to press this up under here for just a second, because I have to find that hole where I made in the beard, because I want him holding, I want him to have the appearance of holding this big firecracker thing. So I find it, I press it in, and then that gives me an idea of where to glue down my little gnome arm. I did actually glue the arm to the little Dollar Tree balloon thing, and that way I could put in this little clip. It's just a little clip that I wrote pop on. And then I glued the arm to the hat just like this on both sides. And that's it. And you're done. Literally, what is this, 10 minutes? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I appreciate you being here. As always, please like and subscribe for more crafty fun. Hi friends, it's Sarah from Ruffles and Rain Boots here with a brand new pattern for 4th of July. This guy is perfect for carrying something. If you'd like to make him with me, just boop, stick around. As always, like this video so I know you're here crafting with me. Now listen, I am so excited. This is a 6 to 7 inch gnome, and he is part of the brand new Icelandic Lovey pattern. You are looking at a few of the ones I've made so far, but I'm saving the best ones. This pattern includes multiple hats, even a reversible hat, arms, body, and even the cutest little shoes ever. Aren't they cute? Boopable noses. Okay, to get started, we're going to be using Mongolian fur. I'm also going to be using clay for the hands and the nose. I used a fleece in a star pattern for the hat and a minky fleece for the body in red. Now the pattern will be below. It has a sew and a no sew version. This is going to be showing you the no sew version. Sewing will be coming next. So I'm going to first hem this fabric on the bottom. All of these minky fleeces are amazing to work with, but you know, they kind of shed if you don't hem them. So I'm just going to quickly do this on the bottom of the hat only. Once I have that done, I'm going to put right sides together. Now, the one thing about this, do line up. All of those little bumpies matter. Just follow the edge of your pattern, because it's with the way it slips on is super cool. I'm not gonna say I failed on previous versions, but y'all, this is a fun pattern. Okay, so all we're gonna do is put on those hot glue finger protectors and make sure we get all the way to the tippy top. Once that glue is dry, we're just going to flip it out. You can use a bamboo skewer or something if you need it for the tip. Now for the bottom, or the body, you have two pieces. You're going to follow the pattern on assembling the larger piece. For the base piece, you're going to attach it just like we do everything else. However, I'm going to show you the dart system here. If you're sewing, this is all done on the inside. If you're using hot glue, this is for you. So you're going to pay attention on, you know, like putting on your base is like normal, right? But what I did is I drew those darts. See these two triangles? I put those perpendicular to the seam, and then all I do is gather so that the sides of the triangles touch, and then I'm going to hot glue that. So you pinch your finger at the very base of where the triangle is, and then you put hot glue all along that edge from the base piece on that seam all the way to the tip of the triangle, and then you just glue it and then press that seam together so it has a nice wide join, and then any hot glue that comes out you just snip off. So I'm going to show you again here. I'm going to start it right at the edge of that triangle and put glue all the way to the base edge and then press those two together, and then any hot glue you can just snip off like this. Easy peasy. Before you move on, do pull and yank and make sure that everything is there. Also make sure you can see right there it doesn't go all the way to the edge of the base seam, and I do want that. So when I move it around again, I'm going to show you these two darts are perpendicular to the back seam. Okay, so you don't have to draw them on your fabric. I just drew them to make sure you could see what I was doing, because this red fabric, you can't see anything. So you'll see here, all I did was just turn it inside out, use the tip of a skewer, and then when I start to, you can't see anything, right? So I just figured I'd show you in white. As always, I fill with poly beads, which are non-absorbing for odor and moisture, and they don't attract pests. They give it a good bit of weight. It's what's used in stuffed animals. For the stuffing for the rest of the body, and by the way, you need no wire, nothing else. So for the rest of the body, we're going to use polyfill. And we're just going to stuff it and even push some into the very tip of the hat with the skewer or your finger, because this is the base of our hat as well. So we want to make sure that's nice and fluffed up. I get a lot of questions on when you know to stop stuffing. If it bounces back when you squeeze it, it's full enough. Get those hot glue finger guards, and you're going to tuck the fabric in on itself, add a line of hot glue, press it together to create a nice wide join. And if you have any glue that escapes, you can snip that off with your scissors after it dries. So I'm just going to speed this part up and go all the way down. Oops, there we go. Go all the way down. I just tucked that glue right back inside. All right, pulling off any of those pieces of hot glue, our body is ready. As I mentioned, I'm using a 3-inch pile of faux fur. I'm going to cut it 4 inches wide by 3 inches tall in sort of this shape here. I don't do it all the way to a point. For this guy, I don't think you need it. It's a waste. So what we're going to do is we're going to line it up so that the beard touches where you want it to on the floor. Mine was actually that it touched the table. And then on the front side of the gnome, meaning not the bumpy part in the back, we're going to attach just the top, brush it out, get everything you like it, and then go ahead and glue everything down. I also decided to add a very teeny tiny mustache for this guy, and all I did instead of notching it was just fold it over on itself and then split it by pulling the fur away from the center on either side. As I mentioned, I'm using a clay round for a nose, so I need to get an idea of where to place it. So I just slip on the hat, get an idea for the nose, and then I'm going to split the faux fur, not there because that's not the middle. There you go. Split the faux fur to the fabric backing, add hot glue, and give the most intense nose boop, boop, until that sets up and goes up around the sides. To attach the mustache, I just put the glue on that join in the center and then glue it directly to the nose. I'm going to slip on the hat and push it all, or pull it all the way down so the body and the hat tips align, and then I'm going to glue down the front of the nose. Now this part depends on whether you're using the adorable feet or the arms. So first, just tack this thing down in a couple of places. Don't like glue it all the way around. The back will always get tacked down, but the size is going to vary depending on which one you're using. So I'm just tacking it down in a couple places before I move on to the arms. So these are just included in the pattern, and I'm using this minky fabric, which means I have to do right sides together on this and then flip them out. And you can use wire, you can use stuffing only, you know, like you've got all of the gnome options for your arms. But I figured since I was making such a big thing on the back, I'm actually just going to cut one arm in half to place them lower on the body. So here you can see I'm just going to cut my wire in half, make sure to bend off your edges, and then I'm going to glue that wire inside, just at the top, the part that's going to be hidden under the hat. I want that not to move, so I do add glue. So I'm going to press that up under. I'm going to glue the arm to the hat and then the arm to the body. And then I'm going to do the other side, just making sure I'm getting them even. Now, before I move on, I need to make sure I know how big my rocket is going to be. So I just decided to use this. It's sort of fabric, it's sort of foam, it's these glitter sheets. You can get them at the craft store. I just basically cut a circle and then a notch out of a pie shape. I want pie. And then when you fold this over, it's going to give you a nice cool rocket top. But I decided because I could still see the white, I needed to hem this. And you know, here's the thing. When you're looking at this a month or two later, however long ago I did this, I could have just used a red marker and covered up that white edge instead of doing this. But, you know, you do you. Hindsight being 2020 in my crafting, this is what I did. So now I'm going to use a piece of my daughter's foam craft foam sheets, and I'm just going to cut rectangles so that I can make a tube. Then I'm going to cut this edge off as close as I can get it, and then I'm going to assemble a firecracker. So to do that, I'm just taking that top, gluing the two edges together, and then gluing it to the top of my foam. For the rockety stuff, I'm just using a foam piece cut that's just smaller than the tube so that I can stick it in with all of these cool curly ribbons attached. And you're just gonna hot glue it right up in there. It's so festive. All right, so I'm going to put on my little clay hands. You can use pom-poms, you can use wood beads, wood rounds, anything you like. And then I'm going to attach this rocket with string. And the reason I'm doing that is because this year my daughter chose a rocket. Next year, I don't know what she's gonna choose. So I didn't want to glue this to the hat. So I'm just adding these, you know, embroidery threads or whatever in two areas, and I'm gonna put it on the back and tie those around his little hands, just like this. And then I just tuck those little ties down. And before I reveal him, I just want to remind you of all the cuties that you can get in the pattern, with so many more to come. Get the pattern link below, but here he is in all his fireworks glory. Let me know in the comment section, what do you think of this? As always, thank you for being here. Please like and subscribe for more crafty fun. Hi there friends, it's Sarah from Ruffles and Rain Boots, and today we're going to make a Scandinavian Sweeties 4th of July gnome. If you would like to make him, boop, stick around. As always, please like this video so I know you're here crafting with me. Now, speaking of crafting, we're going to make this guy. He stands between 10 and 12 inches tall, depending on the hat, and we're going to make an applique on his bum. You can also make this a no-sew gnome by building it on a cone. Okay, so we're going to start with the Scandinavian Sweeties pattern. The link will be down below. I cut a body, a base, 2 arms, 2 mittens, and a hat. I did change the pattern to the hat. I just added a 1/2 inch to the base and rounded off this edge. Now in this pattern there's multiple extras like the mittens and feet, but this I just made a heart out of the hat cast-offs, and then I put it 2.5 inches in from the left and about 1 3/4 inches up from the bottom, and then I just top stitched it on. If you don't have a sewing machine and you're putting this on a cone, fabric glue will work. Speaking of fabric, I am using some jegging material. There you go, look at it. So I have a little bit of stretch in mine. I have made this thing with cotton, with fleece, pretty much minky. I've made it with everything. If you need a detailed tutorial on how to put the base on, go to the Scandinavian Sweeties pattern for this farmhouse gnome. I provide you all the detail you need if you are a beginner. If you are new to sewing, here's what we're going to do. We're going to use about 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to start and reverse our stitches to lock them in. And then we're just going to go all the way around this circle. You're going to move the body out of the way a couple of times as you go around. At the end, you're going to start or join up to where you started and then back stitch it to lock it in. Make sure your seam is flat and move on. Next up, we're going to sew the arms. I'm using the same jegging material. You can use fleece, you can use cotton. And then we're going to sew the mittens. Also in that farmhouse tutorial, if you are a beginner, I actually recommend drawing the mittens onto 2 pieces of fabric, just pinned together, and sewing it before you cut. If you're not new, you can do this. It's about 1/16 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so the hat, I did not hem mine because I wanted a certain like really bulbous, you know, scrunched up look. So I just hemmed down the side, or sew down the side. Okay, so we're going to turn everything out now. The mittens are the only tricky part because they're so small. So I used a dowel, and then I used a smaller dowel on the thumb, rubbed them between my fingers to get the seam flat, and then moved on to everything else. So here I'm just going to use a dowel to turn out the arms because I don't know where my fabric turner thing is. I have a messy craft room. All right, and then the tip of the hat is next, and set that aside. Go to the body. So I did use the smaller dowel to poke out the body tip and then turn the whole rest of the body outside right. Run the seam along my finger, smack it on the table apparently, and now it's time to start assembly. For the arms, I just stuffed them with polyfill. You can use the same 12 gauge wire, loop one end that will go into the mitten, and then leave about 1/2 inch unstuffed at the top so everything will be flat upon assembly. I put the seam in the middle and then of the back, and then I put the arm with the stuffed end into the mitten. So we're going to repeat that, but I want to say one thing. If you want to stuff the mittens, go ahead and put 2 small beads of glue right in the middle of the front and back. Then take your polyfill and use something small to stuff that thumb and your hand, because everybody wants to squeeze the little thumbs and be like, oh, so cute. And you want them to bounce back, so hence the polyfill. Now you can glue that all the way around, or you can do like I did, and I had some red embroidery thread on my craft table, red, black, and white apparently, and all I did was I made a knot, like a double knot on the front, but I didn't want a big bow or anything, so I flipped it over and made a double knot on the back. And then I secured it with the little hot glue ball trick. So I don't know if I've shared that before. I'm sure you all know it. I just make a little hot glue ball, and then I crisscross the remaining thread here over and press it into the ball. And then you can see once it's dry, you just clip off that right next to your glue ball. And it's done. And then I just repeated it so it would match. But you know what would look really cute is some rickrack. Do y'all know rickrack? Anyway, now I have 2 little cute arms. So let's move on. Okay, so I'm using 1 cup of poly beads. They are non-odor, non-moisture absorbing, and I'm gonna put that into the base of my No I'm Not. That was me spilling it. Okay, so moving on, because that was frustrating, I'm going to take 13 inches of floral wire. I'm using 12 gauge. I'm going to roll one end over the dowel, and then I'm going to turn it 90 degrees, and then I'm going to place it into the body of my gnome. Once I have it in there, I'm just going to check my height to make sure that 13 inches was in fact still correct, and I'm going to roll the tip of the tippy top of the hat so it does not poke through anything. And now I'm going to finish stuffing it with weight and polyfill. Do y'all ever do that? Just dump this stuff all over your craft room? I do it a lot. Okay, so we're going to stuff, but if you're crafting along with this instead of watching it all the way through, I'll tell you to stop, because we're going to have to hide and secure that wire. And you may be thinking, but it's already hidden, it's inside. True, but wires have a tendency to roll around inside the body, and that's what we're going to stop. So we can see the wire here. We're just going to make sure our polyfill and our fabric is out of the way. Get our hot glue finger protectors, and then we're just going to make a little channel, and in this channel is where we're going to put this wire, because we still need to sew up, or you can hot glue this opening. So what we're going to do is you're not gluing the wire to the fabric, you're actually just gluing it inside that little channel so it stays put, because when we sew it up, we're going to sew under that little channel so we can be sure to grab it. So before we sew it up, we're going to make sure it's really stuffed well, and we're going to roll it in between our hands to, distribute that polyfill. I get asked a lot about when to know how much polyfill to use. If you squeeze it and it bounces back to its original shape, that's how much polyfill you need. I'm a glutton for punishment and decided to hand sew up this opening. I know, I'm really bad at it. Don't look at me, I'm probably doing it wrong, but it makes it, okay? Just in case you were wondering, it doesn't bust out or anything, but all I'm doing is going under that channel we made, and I'm just going to sew this up. I looked on the time clock and it took me a whole minute. Okay, so now we're going to slip on that hat, lining up the seams and pulling down the top of that hat all the way to the tip of the body, because we don't have any additional stuffing in this hat. You're going to just play around with it, get it to the height you want, and then we're going to cut our beard material. If you've never cut faux fur, I have a video for you. However, you can use anything, yarn, doll hair, hair wefts, anything. So all I'm doing here is pushing up the hat to make sure I have a place for my nose, just like kind of an idea, and then I'm going to secure temporarily the hat so I can pull and yank and move everything. I tuck under that hem and then pin the hat in place in the back. And now I'm just going to put these arms on, and this is optional, but I like to pin the arms on just to make sure that I get everything the right in the right place, because I've made gnomes with mismatched length arms before. So this is how I get around it. I just pin them in place, move them around, make sure I like where they sit, and now you can see I pulled them a little to the front, and now I'm going to glue them down. So I glue the arm to the body, and then I will glue that inside piece so it lays flat. Remember the part we didn't put any stuffing in? That's now going to lay flat. And I just flip it over and do the same thing. It's not so exciting. Okay. Now that that's done, I actually shortened my beard because I didn't want a wraparound beard, and I cut a V shape very wide, more like a U. And you can see I'm going to brush it out, and I'm going to drop it down a little bit so my nose is going to be right where that pin was. I like to put a bead of hot glue at the top and then make sure I like the placement and it's even before gluing down the bottom. And now we can do the nose. So just split the fur to its fabric backing, add a generous portion of hot glue. Generous. And then give it the most intense nose boop ever. Squish! Once that's done, we're going to roll under the tip of the hat. If you're using a trim, you can skip this part, but I am not, so I'm going to use a little bit of hot glue and place that right on the top of the nose. I'm also going to glue right behind this beard, but before the arms, so I'm going to glue the hat right there to that body. And the other side. And once that is all anchored, you can turn it over, and then I'll do two things. I'll just secure that hem so it doesn't come undone. So that's the first little bit. And then I will make a very big line of glue down the seam so it's all hidden. Tuck everything up under and then place that down. Isn't he cute? Now mine is not decorated because I had this adorable little windmill, or no, pinwheel. I do give it the drop test, pick it up by the hat, drop it, and now it's time for you to decorate. What do you think of this little guy and all the little details like extra mittens and feet? Get the pattern down below. Let me know in the comments what you think. And please like and subscribe for more crafty fun.
Hi friends, it's Sarah from Ruffles and Rainboots.com, and today I am sharing a very chunky 4th of July gnome 2 ways. Boop! If you'd like to make it stick around. Please like this video so I know you're here crafting with me. Okay, so here's the cutie I'm going to be sharing today. This is the Knockout Stout gnome pattern without the big bunny ears. So if you already have that pattern, you don't need to go to the link below. It is a sew or glue assembly pattern. It doesn't matter. Both ways will work, and I'll do both of them on this single gnome. But I'm going to give instructions for both. So we need a hat, which is 2 pieces, and a body, which is 1. I'm going to be using Luxe fleece for this, and it is a thin fleece fabric, but both of them are put right sides together. The brim is turned up on the wrong side of the fabric. You don't need to have a brim, but if you want less of a scrunch, the brim is good. If you are assembling this with hot glue, you're going to hot glue the bottom and the side of the body piece. And then once it's dry, you're going to open it up, put the seams aligned, and it will produce a nice big diamond at the bottom. You're going to fold in about 1 inch on either top and bottom of that diamond, and you need to secure it really well with glue. And here's the thing, hold it until it sets. I will say that this is the only point of failure for a hot glue assembly when you're doing a box pleat bottom. So just hold it there. Once it's done, you can set it aside. If you are sewing, you're going to do the same thing. Sew along that bottom edge and the side. You're going to pull out the sides, lay it on the table, and then you're going to line up the bottom seam with that entire front side, making a diamond. If you're sewing, you're going to measure 1 inch from the point at which the fabric is sewn, and then you're going to pin the opposite side, sew it up, and then trim off the 2 ends. If you are gluing, don't trim anything. For the hat assembly, again, we have right sides together, so if you want to glue a brim, you just glue it on the portions facing you. I just glued this up 1/2 inch or so. And if you are gluing, you want to go all the way around. Really good, nice, thick piece of glue here, or a bead of glue, but put your entire arm on the table to make sure you get those nice rounded curves. If you're sewing, sew up your brims and then sew up the entire hat. Once you have that, just trim your strings and turn everything inside out. So I want to show you the bottom of the box pleat looks like this. It's really pretty. It's really clean lines if you are sewing. Now, if you're gluing, it's going to depend on your, whatever you glued it. It will be straight if you glued it straight, if that makes sense. All right, so I'm just going to turn around both of them. And now here we're pushing the easy button because from here we don't have a hot glue different than a sewing tutorial. So everybody's going to be using the same things. We have 1 hat, we have 1 body. We are going to need any kind of trim or whatever. I wanted red, white, and blue all the way around. I'm going to be using poly pellets, 1.5 to 2 cups of that. Polyfill for stuffing, scissors, a hot glue gun, and an X-Acto knife. I'm going to be using fur, but you can use yarn. I'm using a 1 inch bead for the nose and a 1/2 inch beads for the arms. I'm using scrap fabric for the arms. To close it up, I need a needle and some embroidery thread, but you can use a rubber band and then add some string afterwards. All right, so the first portion of our program here is to add in 1.5 to 2 cups of poly pellets and then surround that if you are using a Luxe fleece. So the reason I'm putting poly pellets or polyfill all the way around a pellets is because Luxe fleece is thinner than a sort of like a blizzard fleece or one of those plush fleeces. So I don't want those poly pellets to show. Now I'm going to just make it sure all the way around it's nice and even, and then it's time to close up the body. See how easy this is? Love easy stuff. I'm going to measure out and show you 18 inches, but honestly, measure with your heart because all you need to do is have enough string to tie it together. So about 1 inch down from the top of the body, you are going to do a running stitch with this, meaning you don't have to know how to sew anything. All you're doing is going in and out of the fabric at 1/4 inch spacing, and then just go all the way around until you reach back. I'm going to speed this part up because no one likes a slow sewer. Just saying. All right, so once you get near the starting point, you're going to end on the outside right next to that starting point. Remove your needle, pull your thread out of it, and then tie this up. So do make sure all of the polyfill is tucked all the way in and around. We can move it around in just a second. Just make sure that you've got everything tucked in nicely. Another part I'm going to speed up is my over knotting and gluing situation that I always do on the bodies. So I'm just going to speed that up so you don't have to watch that. And then I'm just going to cut these off so they don't show. Obviously, I have to do my drop test because I am now going to slip on the hat to give me an idea of where to create the gnome beard and the gnome nose. By the way, if you use Luxe Fleece, please know that it sheds insanely, but it is really soft. And you can get it on sale at Joann's for pretty cheap. Okay, so I'm just going to scrunch up my hat, pin it, and that is going to allow me to set it aside and move to the beard. For the beard, I'm going to do a sort of notched V shape that's going to be 3 inches wide. So I'm just going to score the 3-inch mark, and then it's going to be about 2 inches wide down. You can make yours longer. You can make yours a U shape. You can make a beard out of yarn or raffia or doll hair, anything you'd like. This is just a suggestion. I like to show you many, many ways to use my patterns so that you get the most for your money. So I'm going to create the beard by just scoring that fabric backing and yanking it apart. This avoids you cutting through the pretty fur. So just a little trick. I'm going to find the center and then I'm going to pull up a little bit of that fur. You don't need a comb or anything, just pull it up because you need to get to the fabric backing right there. Hard to see on white, but I promise you, if you glue to that fabric backing, two things are going to happen. One, your nose is going to stay in place. And number two, you have the nice little drape faux fur down the sides or over the top of your nose. I don't know what's going on with those little hand beads over there just rolling off my table. How rude. All right, so I'm just going to move the pin onto the body so I can pull up my hat and put on this gnome beard. Now you can sew this on if you feel so inclined. I, however, am a lazy crafter, so I'm going to use my hot glue gun and affix it that way. If you're new to working with faux fur, just try not to get any glue in the faux fur. It's kind of a pain to get out. Yeah, sometimes I just cut it out if it accidentally happens. But we're going to position our beard wherever you have your indicator. I'm going to also lift up the very, very bottom to make sure I glue down this fabric backing all the way around. And if you sell your gnomes, please do this. I get a lot of emails from people who have bought gnomes saying, why is it coming apart? And then I have to explain to them it's not coming apart. You can glue it. All right, so I'm just going to apparently wipe my glue gun on the poor little gnome belly. And I'm going to pull up the sides, making sure that those are all tailored and fixed down as well. Again, I have a comb right next to me, not sure why I feel the need to use my fingers, but now it's time to pop on the hat. I'm going to pin mine in place, and you can absolutely glue yours. You can be done with it here and just start the decoration phase. You can add a big wooden heart if you wanted to the bottom. Just glue the body right on top of a 3.5, 4-inch heart, and you will have the cutest little gnome feet. Isn't that easy? But I'm going to be a little extra and make some arms out of scrap fabric to show you how. I'm going to first glue down the nose or glue the hat to the nose because I want to make sure that I get the front looking the way I want it. Then I'm going to flip it over and pin the back in place. Again, you can glue it if you want at this stage, just leaving portions open for the arms as well. However, I tend to make a lot of decisions before I do any permanence. Now, for the arms, I'm just using a scrap of fabric. This is going to depend on your fabric. I've been asked to show how you can make arms without turning the material. All you need is to make sure it fits with a seam around whatever you're using for the hand. If you're using a mitten for the hand, you don't have to worry about it. Just tuck that mitten onto the end of the arm. But I'm going to work on the wrong side of the fabric. Not that you can tell with this stuff, it looks good from both sides. But what we're going to do is just add a bead of glue on the bottom and then roll the top down over it. And so you can make a nice, very clean seam with about 1/4 inch or so. And this is going to allow you to have like a nice, pretty arm with a clean seam if you don't want to have to turn the fabric. But this Luxe fleece has a 2-way stretch, so you could absolutely turn this inside out. I was just asked to do this for an example. All right, so I'm going to speed this part up. Oh, maybe use your finger guards for that. I don't know. All right, so I'm just going to measure now. We want a portion up under the hat, and then if you're going to have your hands join in the center, you need to cut them longer than I'm going to cut mine. Whoops, that was a little piece of glue that I messed up. So now I'm just going to put my wooden balls inside the end of the gnome arms and just attach those with glue. You can add a little bit of the same trim or use mittens, again, whatever you would like. Some people are using like little doll hands if you want to have 5 fingers, like a little human hand. All right, so now that I got an idea of where to cut it, I'm just gonna hack it off and tuck it up under the hat, just to make sure. All right, now I'm gonna do the same for the other arm, and I'll just give you a hint, just yank the other arm out and just measure it that way. It's a lot easier. Okay, you can stuff your arms. I personally do not like it with this pattern, only because he's a very chunky gnome. And if you have stuffed arms, it just splays them out like he's gonna hula hoop or something. I don't know. I don't know that I should be left alone today. I really want to hula hoop because I saw it on the TikTok. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is now we have both arms. I pulled my stuffing out because I wanted them flat. You can also add wire, your choice. I'm going to now assemble his little arms, but first I'm going to glue down the actual hat so that, because the arms can move, right? But we want the hat where we want it. So I'm just gonna lightly lift up that edge and then press it down. You don't need a lot of hot glue, you just need it to go all the way around. I'm leaving 2 pieces open on the sides where I can pop in my arms. I'm going to remove the pin, tuck them up on that under there, and then I'm going to glue under the arm to the body and also over the arm onto the hat. And then I'm going to tuck down my little hat brim pieces. Isn't this easy? I love this guy. He is so chunky. If you're afraid of a chunky gnome, this is not him. This is not for you. Look, I'm going to give him a mustache. Look at that. Okay, now I'm going to use Sherpa fleece for the trim. And if you've never worked with this before, it's super fun, hides a lot of errors, but do cut it and then pull the edges off. To hide all of the rough edges, we're going to put both of the top and bottom edges right to the center. Do that all the way down and then take that seam side and glue that on. I use 2 rows of glue for anything about 3/4 inch or more, which this is. It ends up being 1 inch because I cut it at 2 inches wide. So I'm just going to glue that all the way around, again, a top and a bottom, just making sure that my glue stays away from the edge. Watch this, look how cute. Oh, perfect fit. Don't you love that? Then I spent 20 minutes deciding what should I decorate? Should I make something with my Cricut? And then I remembered a lesson. Always wipe anything pre-made. I ruined one of my little Valentine gnomes one time, and that is a lesson I learned. So I'm going to get out some paint because I don't like this rusty color for my bright white. I'm going to add black on the edges and the tops of these little rustic stars that I got at the lobby of the hobbies. And then I'm going to paint the top white, letting that black come through. Use my hair dryer because I misplaced my heat gun. And then I'm just going to thread some of the same embroidery thread we use onto the hat and then tie on this little star. That way I don't have a bow or anything. I didn't want that. And now snip off, and here he is with arms, and here he is without arms. Which way do you like him? I really appreciate you watching this. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Also down below will be the pattern link for the Knockout Stout Gnome. As always, thank you for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe for more crafty fun. Hi friends, it's Sarah from rufflesandrainboots.com, and I'm making a quick and free pattern for a cute 4th of July gnome. If you'd like to make it, just stick around. As always, please like this video so I know you're here crafting with me. All right, I've already shared a couple of these. They take 10 minutes to make using Dollar Tree supplies and some faux fur. I've shared Valentine's Day and St. Patrick's Day, and we're moving on to patriotic stuff here. So I'm going to be using these Dollar Tree party cups. They're 9 ounces, but the pattern will account for a little bit bigger. The free pattern can be found down below, and you'll cut a hat and a body. You can use faux fur as I'm using here, or raffia, yarn, anything you'd like for a beard. You need something for a nose and some sort of decoration. I got these from the Dollar Tree as well. I'm going to use the stars. So as you can imagine, we're just going to cover this cup. Now there's 2 ways that you can do it. The first is stopping right here at the brim and then cutting it off all the way around. That's great if you want to add a trim, but it's also unnecessary because I am a lazy crafter and I really wanted it to be able to be adaptable. So we're just going to tuck it under. I am using felt from the craft store. This is very inexpensive. Sometimes the Dollar Tree has felt, just don't get the white because it's very see-through. But I'm going to be just covering this cup. Now, while I'm covering this cup, I want you to know I am crafting real time. So I wanted you to see that these are very, very quick to make. It makes them great if you have a party or if you want to just bring something over, make a treat jar. I'll show you how to turn this into a treat jar basically by doing nothing other than less work. So when you get to the end here, you're just going to close it up. Now, make sure that this is set and all the glue dries. This is stuff I would normally edit out, which is the glue drying. But this part right here, you can either cut it off or just glue it. I'm going to end up covering the seam with my faux fur, and you can do the same. Oh, I got to get that little piece off there. There we go. Okay, so once that is set, you know what we're going to do. We're going to turn it upside down. We're going to grab some scissors and we're going to cut tabs into each of these. So if you want to do this, make sure you're not going all the way to the cup because we do want to make sure that doesn't show through. And now we're just going to glue this all down. So start with the bottom layer right where the 2 pieces joined or overlapped, and then just start with those tabs, glue, and pop them down. I was asked when I shared this before whether or not kids could use a glue gun for this. Absolutely. My daughter uses a glue gun, but she's 11. When she was only 5, we gave her a low temperature glue gun, and she was really, really good with it. They do have some that have nice little guards on them to help little ones not burn themselves. That said, you could also use craft glue on this. It's just going to take a little while. So if you want to use craft glue, you may want to do this for the little kids and just let them decorate. Next up, we're going to create our beard. As I mentioned, you can use raffia, you can use stuffed animal fur from Dollar Tree stuffies, you can use faux fur. It doesn't matter. Either way, we're just going to make sure that if we're using faux fur, the pile of the fur, which way it points, is pretty important. We're just going to make sure that pile of fur is pointing down, and we're going to cut a 2-inch by 2-inch square. That's it. And if it's a little larger or a little smaller, don't worry, both will work. All right, so you don't have to draw on your fur. I just did that for you. You're going to take an X-Acto knife and barely score the fabric backing. Look at that. No cut fur, no jagged edges, and no transfer. Super easy. All right, so over here, we're just going to yank that off. You can see there's a little knot in the fur. I actually have a really big knot you'll see in a second in the front of that fur. We're going to get it out with a little brush. All right, so speaking of brush, you can use a pet brush, you can use a comb, anything you'd like for this. You can see the knot right there. Oh. I'm just going to brush that out, and now we're ready to attach our gnome beard. As I mentioned, you can put it in the front or the back. I'm going to hide the seam. Either way, you're going to put your 2 by 2 inch square a ½ inch below or a finger's width below the top of the cup. And that's going to give for a perfect placement of the hat. So just glue that down and make sure you glue down all of the sides. We do want to make sure we don't get any glue in that faux fur. It's just kind of a pain to get out. It goes everywhere. All right, and the other side as well. For decorations, you can use anything you want. I'm just going to use those little wooden things so that they match the wood bead or a wood ball that you can use for the nose. But for the nose, you can use anything you have on hand. Beads, wool balls, like those felted wool balls. You can use pom-poms, just whatever you have. All right, now that our beard is on, we're actually going to create a place for our nose. I like to brush up like a tiny little bit of fur so it'll drape over the nose, and then split the fur down the center. So you're going to split it until you see this fabric backing. That is what we want to glue the gnome nose to, no matter what you're using. So just add a little hot glue and press that on. Or just drop it like I did. You know, it works. Now you can press it in. I chose not to because this cup is just a paper cup. Okay, so now that that's on there, you're just gonna brush the fur right down over the nose. And now it's time for my favorite part, which is the hat. So this free gnome hat pattern is a cone shape, which means it's going to come together perfectly. And I designed it so you could put it over the top of the nose. You don't have to, but I'll show you how I do it. I hold the front in place, and then I get the measurement for the back so that I know how much to glue over. Oops. And then just add a little tiny bit of hot glue down there and, wipe it off of your actual table. And then make sure that dries before moving on. So the reason we're doing that is because it makes the top go a whole lot easier. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to just turn this around a little bit. And then what we're going to do is press it flat onto the table and then roll over that top edge. At the very tip, leave it open just a little bit, add a small amount of hot glue right to the inside part, and then fold it over. No need to, burn yourself or anything. It's super easy when you press it down on the table. Now for the rest of the hat, we're just going to glue up this opening in between the two of them. And I'm going to show you, make sure to not use a ton of hot glue. Number one, if you're using a lot of hot glue on a thin felt, it could show through. You can use a thin felt, just make sure you're using a nice thin bead of hot glue. When you put the centerpiece together, make sure your inside isn't sticking. That's just a check. And then glue the rest of it down. When I shared this before, I got asked if you could sew this by hand. Absolutely. To sew it by hand, you would want to use a blanket stitch, which is the easiest way. It also adds a nice little decoration. Or you can use something like a straight stitch if you're really crafty. You can do a cross stitch up the back, or you want to teach kids. That is super easy. It will all work. All right, so now I'm going to slip this on, and you can see that it will be friction fit, meaning you do not have to glue it down. So what you do is pop it over the nose, and then you can tug it down and back. Okay, ready? So we pop it over the top of the nose, and then tug it down and back. Well, line up the seam with the actual back. There we go. And that is, it can stay like that, okay? Or you can tuck some treats in here. I'm all about the treat jars, right? So let's say you want to make a few of these for party favors. That is like an easy way to send somebody home with just a sweet treat. You can also pop in some lollipops, and we even did rock candy for one. But if you want to make it permanent, you can actually stuff polyfill up the hat, even using the tip of your scissors to tuck it all the way in. If you use polyfill, I do recommend securing the hat. But if you don't want to, you don't have to, because you can take these apart to store them, and you can even stack them inside of each other, which is what I really liked about it. So I'm just lining the back of the hat up, pulling everything down, and I'm just going to glue this little brim in place. This is so easy, right? I love easy crafts during the summer. They have to be easy. They have to be quick. I love them. So I can get back out to the pool. All right, so now it's your choice, but I chose to decorate with these little Dollar Tree uh, icons. They are in like a little like tic-tac-toe grid, and they're super cute. They came in fall, Christmas, and then I had some spring and summer. So I'm choosing the summer pack, and not from the Dollar Tree is some embroidery thread, only because I wanted to match that bright blue of my bottom piece of felt. If you're looking to go with all Dollar Tree items, however, you can use the Dollar Tree cotton rope or the jute twine to make your hanger. You're just going to measure it by eyeball, see where you want it, and then I'm just going to match whichever side. One of the sides is darker and one is lighter. So whichever side matches, you flip it over, add a little dollop of hot glue, and then take that a little bit long piece in right through that hot glue, and then let that dry. And you're just going to cut off the little bottom piece and hang it on your gnome. Now you can obviously get a lot more fancy with your decorations, but I was going for a minimal theme with mine, with all of these actually. Here is our little guy, and that is it. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of this? Do you love him? As always, you can get the free pattern down below, and thank you so much for being here. Please like, please share, and subscribe for more crafty fun.
All right, so for my last DIY, I have this sign from the dollar spot, a small wood ball, and leftover fabric we've been using, Mongolian fur. So all I did is just sanded off the front of this. That's it. You don't need to paint it. I did chip the edge, so I'm going to have to paint that little chip, but I'm using this scrap of fabric. All you have to do is make a triangle. So I didn't know how big of a triangle I wanted, so I just hemmed this bottom, which looked almost like a gnome hat. This is some quick crafting while I'm supposed to be packing, right? Do y'all ever procrastinate? Let me know in the comments if you are a procrastinator. Is that a word? I hope it's a word. Oh, I should put it on a t-shirt. Okay, so I'm just going to eyeball measure what my triangle hat should look like. So what I'm going to end up doing is putting the very tip together. And so just no stuffing will go in that or anything. Just glue those two pieces together as far down as the top of the block. So again, this is good. You can do a small block, a tall rectangle, whatever you've got. I glued down one corner so I could just anchor that hat in place, and then I eyeball measured my cut of faux fur. Wait till you see this cut. I don't like wasting faux fur, so here you go. I've got a trapezoid of fur here, and it works. And that's what we're gonna go with. I used an X-Acto knife to score the back of the fabric only, and then watch, yank it right off, and it's perfect. So as you can imagine, I'll be gluing that down directly to my little square here. Easy crafts, right? Like these are the fastest, probably easiest things I've ever made a little 4th of July display. Once I had that down, I split the fur to its fabric backing, added on a little wood bead, and then I'm going to glue down the top of the hat all the way across, taking note of, like a little scrunch over the nose. I'm going to anchor one side completely all the way to the top, add some stuffing, and that gave me a 3D hat. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. But I glued it all the way up and across at the top so no stuffing would come out, and then I just glued down the side and bent it over. It also looks really cute if you leave it above the thing. So I fixed my little chippity-doo-dah that I did there, added a teeny tiny heart button, and he's all done. Isn't he the sweetest? That took about, 4 minutes. Well, that's it for me today. What do you think of these ridiculously fast 4th of July crafts? Let me know in the comments below which one was your favorite. As always, thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe for more crafty fun.
And that is it for my little selection of 4th of July gnomes. What do you think? I'd love to hear what you think, or I'd love to hear which one was your favorite we've made so far here on the channel. As always, I sincerely appreciate you being here. Please like, please share, and subscribe for more crafty fun.